All right, so I want to welcome John Hopper from the greatest on the planet here. This is take two. We did this the first time and it didn't come out to our liking, so we are going to hit this again because that's what championship leaders do. So thank you again, John, for making time to be on the Championship Leadership Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm truly honored to be here. I mean, I'm running with the big dogs today. It's a real treat to be here.
Well, thank you. And so let's start it off. So Championship Leadership is the name of the podcast. And I know I've asked you this before, but I love the answer that you gave is what do you think of, or what comes to mind to you when you hear championship leadership?
Responsibility and accountability. And you could basically look at, any leader, I think, true leadership and championship, and, they would accept accountability and responsibility. The star quarterback, is not going to pass blame onto somebody else for a loss. You know what I mean? They're accepting accountability and responsibility for that loss equally, and that's what true, I think, championship leadership is. And whether that's in business or your relationships at home or a sport or whatever it may be, accountability and responsibility is championship leadership to me.
Yeah, 100%. And I've had the thought when you said that answer is, I think often, I think of championship leadership. I'm a big sports guy. I grew up playing athletics and watching sports and following the NFL and college football. And you got Bill Belichick, you got Nick Saban, like they're always in the championship game. They're always playing for the championships and winning championships. And what's always stuck with me from a little kid to today still when I see it, and again, press conferences come to mind after big losses, like games where it didn't go their way or not necessarily even in their control. Maybe the player didn't execute the way that it was coached, or the call didn't go their way, or whatever it is, it didn't matter. Like the championship level leaders always took accountability and responsibility, even when it could be really easy to be like, hey, like it's not my fault. Like, they take that accountability and responsibility because they know that no matter what happens, there's still plenty of opportunities along the way where they could have went the right way. Or, just realizing and recognizing that, hey, this is like, it all falls on me. I'm on the top. It's my responsibility and accountability to, depending on the results of the team or the company or whatever organization, your family, whatever it is, wherever you're leading, it's a championship level leader. I love that, 100% responsibility and accountability.
And true champions and leaders too, when they do win, don't take all the credit either. So they will say, I wouldn't have been able to do this without my teammates, or this person helped me, or that person helped me. So that's another trait of leadership and championship as well. When things are going good.
Yeah, I love that you said that because yes, I 100% agree. And I see it a lot where different people will take credit for all of the glory, right? Or someone else's successes that they might have played a little part in. And yeah, so I love that you say that because I think to me that's a big one. Yeah.
Me too.
I saw a post today on your Facebook as I was looking through, and you had somebody that reached out to you. And so I wanted to bring that up because it falls right in line with what we're talking about here on the Championship Leadership Podcast. Tell us what happened. Give us the backstory. I'm thinking, so
yeah.
Reached out.
So it's a business associate of mine, and he knows me basically from my construction world, not from the greatest on the planet world. And, and it happens every once in a while. Somebody will call you out of the clear blue. And this was a really special call because of why he called. He didn't call to say, I got a job for you, or something's wrong or something like that. He basically just called to say he had been thinking about me all day, which was really nice because most people don't do that. They don't call and say, I've been thinking about you all day. Yeah. And I would have not normally taken the call because I was out to dinner with my son, but I did not expect him to call. It was later in the evening. We were even out to dinner late.
Sure.
He calls, and I'm like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Because you're not expecting the call, right? So he calls, he's like, well, I've been thinking about you all day, which of course made me smile because why would somebody be thinking about me all day, right?
Right.
And, and you've been weighing on my mind all day and there's something different about it. And I was like, okay, again, this isn't something normally somebody calls and says. And if they are calling to tell you there's something different about you, they usually get right to the point, like you're an asshole. We don't like for whatever reason, but he's not getting to the point. He's like, he's like, I've been thinking about it all day. There's something different about you. And, I haven't been able to put my finger on it all day. So you've been weighing on my mind all day, but there's something different. I said, well, did you figure it out? He's like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, well, spill the beans, dude. I want to know.
Let's hear it.
Get to the point. We're not strangers. Tell me what it is. So then he even went a little bit further and he's like, this isn't something I'd normally even tell somebody, you know what I mean? Especially and tell it to him in this way. But you're a leader. And I was like taken back by it. And I like to think of myself as a leader. You know what I mean? Like that's important to me to sometimes I'm going down the road and I'm by myself. You know what I mean? I'm trying to steer hundreds of people to think maybe I'm on the right, maybe I'm going the right way. Maybe everybody else is going the wrong way. Did anybody ever stop to think maybe I am going the right way? And maybe if we all just kind of go the way that I'm going here, maybe we're going to end up where we need to be. And I do travel alone a lot because of that, because I'm always thinking about, a different way to do something or, how else can we do it? And I do believe that, if you're running with the masses, you're running in the wrong direction. When I grew up and I had a mentor, I would work like this. We would have like a project we're working on, right? And again, in my career, schedule has been very important. Money and schedule, time and money, right, is basically what rules the construction world. So I would be all stressed out, and I have like some kind of a problem. Something's over budget, or something is behind schedule, and I would get all stressed out. And my mentor would look at me and he would say, "John, if it were easy, everyone would do it." And he's exactly right. That was pounded into my head so many times. And if you see it being done easily, it's probably not being done the best possible way. There's a better way. And just because it's easy and because the masses are doing it doesn't mean we have to do it that way. So I do see myself as a leader. And when somebody else sees you as a leader, but I don't really just go through life on it every single day and go, I'm a leader. But sometimes I do find myself traveling lonely. You know what I mean? I'm going down a path nobody else is on. And I'm like, well, this is what leaders do. You know what I mean? They go down roads other people are afraid of. And it was a real honor to have, another business associate, somebody that I respect, somebody who's very financially well off, tell me that he saw me as a leader. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, and that's great. And I know, you probably wouldn't have even brought it up had I not, right? And I think that's also a great characteristic of a championship level leader. But I've talked about this with other guests. Is when someone else runs around and says they are a leader, like normally they're probably not, right?
Right.
They're having to run around and tell everybody that they're a leader. And so, yeah, it's a great testament to you, what you do and who you are, that someone else, especially that you really respect, that wouldn't normally just call out of the blue like that to give you that call and to give you that praise and to let you know that. It's just a testament that, hey, you are on the right track. And like you said, I also talk about this all the time, is it's that road less traveled, right? The championship level leaders are on that path that no one else is on, or that very few are on, because everybody else, when they come to that fork in the road, they're going left and you go right. And it's really a good transition to maybe a question that I will typically ask is, there are often times in a championship leader's life where, Bill Belichick wasn't always with the Patriots and winning championships. Like, he had some losing seasons. He got fired. Like, there was plenty of opportunities for him where he could have been like, screw this, I'm going to go do something else, or to play the blame game, or to not believe in himself. But yet he decided to continue and went to the right when everybody else is going left. And it's kind of that turning point that has him right where he is today because of that. Can you think of any moment in your life where, man, you just like came to that crossroad and you're like, I could very easily go where everybody else is going, but because of who you are, you did go? Right.
I've been there many times, many times, and I think we discussed this briefly in the other interview that you and I did. But I grew up in a very abusive home. So in the home that I grew up in, it was my mother who was the abuser. It wasn't my father. I think in a lot of homes that's typical. Like the father's like a drunk or mean or beats on the kids or whatever. But in my home, it wasn't the case. It was my mom, and my dad was a workaholic, so he was an entrepreneur. He was at work all the time. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was very physically abusive to me. Now, I believe that she did that, number one, because she was raised that way, but number two, because she just didn't like my father, and I was my father's son, so her abuse to me was essentially she didn't like him, so she was taking it out on me. That's what I believe. And, when you talk about the fork in the road, you can go one way, you can go the other way. Well, I could have become a victim of that, right? I could have said,
Yeah.
well, I grew up in an abusive home, so that's why I am the way I am. I smoke and I drink and I beat my kids and I do all these things, but I don't do any of those things. Well, actually, I did just quit smoking, so I'm in the clear on that one right now. But
Love it. Awesome.
I look at that as an excuse, because of my childhood. But and I'm not a drinker and I don't beat my kids or anything like that. I don't have any of the stereotypical things. But the fork in the road was when I was little, I was being abused, which was there's no other word to describe it. I was grounded. I couldn't go outside. I spent the vast majority of my life inside the house from birth to 13 because I wasn't allowed to leave. And then it was even worse than that. I wasn't even allowed to watch TV in the house, right? I could basically just exist in the house. That was like, what I was allowed to do. So what I did was, I didn't buy into that program. I didn't say, okay, this is what it is. So it's like, when Bill Belichick got fired, right? He didn't say this is the end all be all. This is the end of the story for me. He took that fork in the road and he said, there's another way. And I've been doing that since I was a little kid, right? So you say, is there a specific point? Well, certainly when I grew up in an abusive home and you don't end up becoming an abuser, you took the fork in the road at that point, right? So I've taken it many, 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 many times. Maybe it's something I was just born with. I don't know. But, I try not to. I don't play the victim. It's not anybody else's fault. If things are going wrong, I do have that fork in the road, and like I said, I'll most likely take the one less people around.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for sharing that very personal story. And yeah, like you said, just to be where you are in life and who you are as a man and a father and a leader. I think many do end up kind of just following in the path. They don't break the chain, and you've broken that chain and not continued that inside of your family. So let's talk about the greatest on the planet, and let us know what is that? What is this company, the greatest on the planet, and how did this all become? And what are you? What's your vision for that? What are you looking to do with what you've created?
Sure. So I'll do my best to describe it in a way that will resonate with championship leadership listeners, who's the audience here. But it's a 17-year failure. Is essentially what it is. This is a product of doing something wrong for 17 years. I personally did it wrong for 17 years, and this entire country, the vast majority of this world, has been doing it wrong for hundreds of years. Hundreds. And I simply did what everybody else was doing because that's all I knew and that's all they knew. It's like, the fork in the road. We just kept taking the easiest one, the easiest one, the easiest one. And I figured out that there's another way. And while it might not be the easiest way and it might not be the most comfortable way, it's the best way. And what the situation is when we're employees and we work for our employer, they teach us things. They teach us how to be an employee. And we become very good at our craft, our trade, or whatever that may be. And then we decide we're going to go do this on our own. And we take with us the great knowledge that we learned about our craft and our trade, but we also take the experience that we knew and how to be an employee. And then we take that information and we transfer it onto our employees. And it's very, very simplistic. It's basically come to work, do what I tell you to do, and I will pay you for doing it. And it doesn't work anymore. It hasn't worked since probably the late 1980s. And that's why we have people, changing jobs. They don't stay as long as they did. There's people that apply for a position and never even show up to the first day of work. They came to the interview, filled out the resume, filled out the application, did everything, and didn't come to work. And the reason that happens is because their needs are no longer being met before they even made it to the job. So I did this wrong for 17 years, and I was that very much that employer. I thought, my way's the right way, and all these hundreds of other people are incorrect. They're wrong. And after beating my head against the wall for 17 years and firing literally hundreds of people, hundreds more quit, hundreds more never even showed up for the first day of work. I sat down and said, I'm doing something wrong. Something is wrong. And again, this is leadership, right? I now start going down a road. Nobody else is on it. I'm standing on this road by myself, and I'm saying, maybe I'm the problem. Maybe 600 to 1,000 other people aren't wrong, right? I'm the wrong person. And I know for a fact it's over 600. It's in the thousands. It's bad. Again, if we sat down and talked about the epic failure I was as an employer, it's just flat out embarrassing. I mean, I have fired entire teams of people. Entire teams. I have let people go because a great employee came to me and said, I need more money. And I said, I don't have it to give. And that was a lie. I did have it to give. I was giving it to the wrong person. I was giving this person's money that they absolutely earned and deserved. I was giving it to a slug. I'm giving it to somebody who's not doing anything for me. And then the guy who's doing everything to me comes up to me and he's like, hey man, I'm going to need to make another, and it'll give you stupid amount, $10,000 or $15,000 a year is a joke when you're dealing with a producer. Right? I mean, you have conversations over, I can't give you more money, over $100,000, right? When they're asking for 100,000 more, right. Then you're saying I can't afford it, right? But when they come to you and they're talking something ridiculous like $15,000 a year, I mean, what does that break down to? $300 a week? The guy's a killer. Give him the $300 a week and fire the loser, right? Because the loser is the problem. But back then, I didn't have any way of deciphering who was the winner and who was the loser. So I have it now. I figured it out, and
how did you figure that out? Yeah. So what was the light bulb?
Well, so I was sitting at home. It was Sunday. It was August of 2017. I'm sitting at home, and I have my kids with me. I'm a single father. I have my kids with me, and work is just weighing on my brain, which it always does, constantly. Work. Because again, I want to grow. I want to win. These are all the things. They don't go out and play championship football on Sunday with no game plan, right? They thought about it all week. They watched a lot of film. Yeah,
absolutely.
They watched a lot of plays. They did the whole entire thing. And I'm no different. I do the same thing. So I'm sitting at home and I'm thinking to myself, why am I the only person that cares? Nobody else cares. I am one missed payroll away from most of these people not even showing back up to work again. If I don't make payroll on Friday, they're probably not coming back on Monday. What's wrong? Something is wrong. These people are, they want to do a good job, but something's amiss. So I sat down and I said, well, what's the most important thing here? What's the most important thing I care about as it relates to an employee? And I came up with 6 things. There's only 6 things that I really, truly care about. And I could create a 7th. I could create an 8th. I could create 100, but I don't need to. And anything above the 6 that I created are unnecessary, because really all I truly am looking for is an employee that when they come to me and they say they want something, I'm forced to give it to them because they're that good. And if I can get that out of 6 things, why would I not share that with the world? I want the world to know that they can do that. You're an employer. You're doing it wrong. This is what you need out of your employees. If you can get those 6 things out of your employees, and really truthfully, the 6th one isn't even required. I just added it in there. But if you got 5, you have an employee you don't want to get rid of. So now when that employee comes to you and says, hey, I need help paying my mortgage this month. I need help paying my car payment. I need a day off. I got this with my kids. I got that. You're going to bend over backwards to meet their needs because they're meeting your needs. So now we don't have to do it wrong. We don't have to do it the way that we were trained as we were coming up before we started our own businesses. There is a right way to do this and a wrong way to do this. And the vast majority of the world is doing it wrong. We can't take information and smash it into an employee and say, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, because the minute they hear you say, do this, and they don't resonate with it, they're disengaged. They may not quit the job. They may continue to ride the job out because it meets their financial needs or it meets their schedule or, you know, whatever it may be, but they don't want to do what you just told them to do.
Yeah.
And they're human beings. They're not robots.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. They need to understand the why, right? And especially now today more than ever, like you said, back in the 50s and 60s, you could get away with like, hey, just do this because I said so. And they would, but nowadays, like you said, times have changed for sure. And so you recognize this. And so what are the 6 things? You give the nuggets away?
Yep, absolutely. So the most important thing in any business is the people there. It's not the customer, because if you have great people, you can go get more customers. If you have no people and you have a lot of customers, what good does that do you? You have to have the people to service the customer. So, and same with money. If you have a lot of money and you have no people to go duplicate that money, then you basically have a bank account, not a business. You know, you have to have a way to multiply the money. So everything starts with the people and it ends with the people. If all the people go away, you don't need a light bill, you don't need a phone number, you don't need an office, you don't need insurance, you don't need to pay taxes, you don't need anything. So the people are the most important thing. And if in fact that is the most important thing, I contend that the employee doesn't understand that and the employer doesn't understand that. So right at the most important thing in the company, there's a disconnect. They do not agree. The employee sees themselves as replaceable, and the employer sees the employee as replaceable. And all I'm saying is that's not true.
Yeah, I think that's
because it's not
distinction, right? Like, I mean, that's the difference between a championship level leader and someone that's not. Like, you're the owner that thinks that they're the most important thing inside of the company, and like you're saying, it's like the people that you have that are out there that are, you know, doing the services, doing the work, communicating your message, representing you and your product, your service, or whatever it is. Yeah, it's the people. I love that.
Right. I was talking to a guy who owned a roofing company, and you know, he was basically coming at me with the "I'm not correct" because they are replaceable, and if he needs to, he can replace them very easily. And I said, okay, here's what I want you to do: go to work and tell every single crew, tell every single person in the office, tell every single person in accounting, tell every single person in sales, we're closed. Take the day off. But I want you to go do all their jobs. He's like, I couldn't do it. I said, exactly.
Yeah, right. That's great.
You can't do it. How are you going to send out a bill? How are you going to drive all the trucks that you have? How are you going to do you're not even going to go up on the roof and lay the shingles, much less answer the phone at the office. He's like, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. When you put it that way, if we're still open and I don't have those people, I'm in a lot of trouble. And it can, a mass exodus of people, right? It's the greatest asset we have, can really almost put a business out of business. I mean, if you have that many people leave, it's really a huge problem. And that's why, you know, a lot of times, this is a little bit off subject, but you'll see a company go through bankruptcy and they're trying to steer the company back into solvency or, you know, getting them out of Chapter 11 or whatever. And they'll start throwing massive amounts of money at the employees, because the bankruptcy court understands if the people leave, this place is done. We got to keep them here. And that's why you'll see a CEO getting a huge bonus while they're in bankruptcy, or you'll see the, you know, CFO or the employees might even get bonuses. And it's all because if we don't have the people, we're toast. We got to have them to steer us through this. And then the second most important thing, so the employee, the value of the employee, and that the most important thing is number one. The second most important thing is revenue. I have to have sales. If I don't have sales, I can't pay employees. I can't pay rent. I can't pay insurance. I can't pay taxes. I can't do marketing. I can't do anything if I don't have sales. So I need all of the employees. I don't care what you do here. If you work here, I need you to help me on sales. In some way or another, you have to help me bring in money. Because if you can do that, you ultimately pay for yourself, right? So, and you could use any example. You were in insurance sales for years, right? And let's say you had somebody who answered the phone for you, right? But the person that answered the phone for you continually came to you with new leads of new sales. Doesn't that person become extremely valuable to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't you kind of not care how much money you're paying them to answer the phone? Because
Right.
the truth of the matter is they're doing a lot more than that, right? And in my program, I actually tell the employee that we as employers want to hear your wins. That's what we want to hear about. We want you in our ear constantly about the wins that you're bringing in. We want to hear you closed a new sale. We want to hear a job is done. We want to hear that a new lead came in. Don't be afraid to come bark in my ear and tell me that you got a new lead. I want to hear you, right? Because I want it programmed in my brain. When you come back to me and tell me you need more money, I want to quickly look at you and go, I've been doing nothing but hearing about this person win. That's all I've heard is win and win, win, win a person. And now they're coming to me telling me they need more money, they need a day off, they need a vacation, they need help with their rent, they need help with a car payment. I mean, you would be surprised how much your employer will do for you if you produce revenue. If you produce revenue, a lot will happen, but it's not enough. Producing revenue alone is not enough. And that'll take us into the third thing that I care about, which is follow up. And what does not make the list here is customer service. And the reason customer service doesn't make the list of the 6 most important things is because we're going to attack customer service at its root problem. And the root problem with customer service is they entered into an agreement with us to do something and we didn't do it. And now they're upset. We didn't do what we said we were going to do. If most businesses just did what they said they were going to do, there wouldn't be customer service problems. But that doesn't happen. And we end up with a series of dead ends. And that's why follow-up is so important. And in the program, I tell the employee, you need to follow up to the point of embarrassment. I want the customer, your supervisor, a prospective salesperson to get upset with you. If you bring this up one more time, when that happens, you don't need to bring it up anymore, right?
Yeah.
People don't do that. It falls apart. And I have a situation in my business right now. Somebody's not following up. I'm like, they need my program. They need what I'm selling, and I'm doing business with them. They're not following something up.
Yeah.
So follow-up comes in the list at number 3. Now, inevitably, you will have somebody follow up, and you'll still have an upset customer. That is going to happen. Well, your employees are representatives of you when you're not there, right? They represent you. They are you when you're not there. And they will follow something up and a customer will still get upset. So this is where number 4 comes into play. I might have to go to bat for that employee. When the customer comes up and they're yelling and screaming that this employee's incompetent and they're worthless and they're useless and your company's all screwed up and blah, 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 because that will still happen even after we follow something up, right? What I need to know, the 4th most important thing is this employee of mine a good human being? Are they a good person? Because if they are a good person and I have an employee or I have a customer coming up to me complaining about this employee, I can defend the employee. I know this employee did not do this to you maliciously. They did not do this out of malice to you to get you in some evil way. They follow things up. They're a good human being. I can support them. So, and it's important too because I'm in construction, right? So, I mean, a lot of people in my thing are not necessarily good people. There's a lot of them that are not. And they're huge backstabbers, huge, not to me, to other employees. So these people will take massive amounts of time to get each other fired. We didn't finish it because this person did this. It's the exact opposite of championship leadership. They're pointing the finger. This is why we didn't get it done. If they would have just done this, we would have absolutely gotten it done. They'll complain about this before it's even a problem. It's not even a problem, and they're complaining about it. So the person
and that's a
being
big testament to, like, you know, to number one, the people. You know, people are your most important, and if you're treating them that way, that culture is automatically being built. And I would guess that there's a lot less of what you were just talking about, right? That, like, if the people are the most important and they know that and they realize that, and you got and you're going to get quality people over time because you are treating them that way, and they want to stick around and they love the company, and then they start to like each other and they're not backstabbing, and then the follow-up is happening. And then when they see you have their back in those situations, which again, you're having their back because you know they're a good human being, and because people, number one, people is your greatest asset in your company. Like, it all just kind of works off of each other, as I can see just as you're going through this, just how key that is. So.
Right. And then the next thing is, I may not be there to have their back. So I need everybody to have their back. We're on the same team. The competition is down the street. We do not compete with each other here. You know, if you took a team of people and just say a fast food restaurant, and all of them to collectively focused on how are we going to empty out the drive-through at Burger King, they would do a lot better than if they said, how am we going to personally service my own little 3 foot by 3 foot square, right? We want to compete. We want to compete, but with the competition, not with each other. So if I have a team player, that's very, very, very important to me, and it comes in the list at number 5. If I want to, I could stop right here, because I have an employee who understands their value and I understand their value. They're helping me bring in sales. They're following things up. They're a person of good character, and they're a team player. That person comes to me and needs something, I'm going to have a very hard time saying you're fired. I'm going to try to service their needs. But I'm a little on the greedy side, so I'm going to ask for one more thing. And one more thing is, I want you to be trying to do a little bit more today than you did yesterday. Because if you put that icing on the cake, they are now 100% unfireable. I cannot fire them. And if they actually come to me with some kind of a crazy, outlandish demand of me as an employer, I'd be really hard to tell them no. Why would I tell them no? They're pushing to do more. They're a team player. They're a person of good character. They're following things up. They help bring in sales. They're understanding their value. Why would I tell them no? I'm not going to tell them no. I'm going to tell them yes. And now when you have an employee whose needs are being met, you can quit worrying about what drives them. Because as an employer, we do worry about that. But we try to take human beings as groups and collect them together. Have you ever heard somebody say, the millennials don't want to work? Have you ever heard anybody say that?
Yeah, I've seen it. You hear it all the time.
Yeah, they're taking a whole group of human beings, lumping them together and saying, this whole group doesn't want to work. That's not true.
Yeah.
That's insanity. You can't take a whole group of people and lump them together. And as employers, what we try to do is we try to take the easy way out. We were talking about that before. You know, if it's easy, it's probably not the right way. So what we as employers readily have available is money. And sometimes we don't even have that readily available. But we try to use it as a tool to motivate our employees. So we say, okay, if you do this, I'll give you money. Well, the challenge with that is a lot of people don't want money. That's not what drives them, right? I mean, and I'm being very presumptuous here, but I'll go with you. I don't think you're driven by money. And I'll give you a few examples of why I think that. One, you're training right now to run a 200-mile race. And you're going to raise money for that race to give to someone else. You're not going to collect the money.
Right.
You have a very successful insurance program business.
Yep.
Sold that so that you could then go out and help other people make their lives as amazing as yours. right? So
Yeah.
then I said to myself, okay, is Nate Bailey driven by money? I have a lot of evidence on my side right now that says you are not.
Yeah.
You're not driven by
I
money,
agree.
even though you have been very successful in life and a lot
Yeah.
of money has come to you.
Yeah. I
It's
like
not
money.
your
Don't get me wrong.
right, but it's not your
Yeah.
driving force, right?
Yeah.
And quite honestly, because that's true, you'll most likely always have a lot of money because you're coming from a right place. Even if there's a little hiccup in the road or something like that, you keep doing what you're doing and you will end up making a lot of money no matter what. It will come to you. But we as employers are lazy, so we try to say, okay, we'll motivate them with money. And they're not motivated by money. They're motivated by something else, like you, be helping people, right? You have an opportunity to take your gifts and talents and help other people. You're like, okay, let's do that. I would prefer to do that. And maybe that's what drives the employee. So the employee, now that they're doing what the employer wants, they come up and they're like, hey, you know what I'd like? Why there's a 3-day walk for breast cancer. I'd like the company to be a corporate sponsor of that, right? Now, this is an employee who's doing what you need him to do. What are you going to do? Tell him no? Write him a check. Because here's the thing. If you're not willing to write the check to promote the help that they're asking for, don't be upset when they go down the street. Take those talents that you now recognize in them and start doing that for your competitor. You better be willing to give them what they want. And you'll be surprised. It might be something really stupid. It might be help me with a GoFundMe account. It might be help me with a charity. It might be, help me with my rent. But you'd be surprised. A lot of it really isn't that expensive. When you tell somebody you can make $100,000 a year if you just do this, you might as well have just told them they could get a cold. They don't want it. That's not what right?
Yeah. So how do you take them from, so there's these six steps, right? Or I don't know if you call them steps or not, but there's these 6 things to be the greatest on the planet. How do you take that from, the theory of, hey, this sounds great, this all makes sense, to getting these employers or these owners to implement it and make it work?
Sure. So that was a lot of work because I initially did it in my company and I said, I can just do this for everybody. Well, the challenge with it is there's a lot of challenges with it. I've done my homework on it. I've done my research on it. And the very first challenge is, while those 6 things are universal to every single industry, they change per industry. So how I'll use an example of a heating and cooling company. How a heating and cooling company follows something up isn't the same way a florist does it, right? A florist isn't going to call a funeral home and say, did those flowers make it over there? They're not going to do that. But is an HVAC guy going to call the homeowner on Sunday afternoon and make sure everything's okay with the furnace? I highly recommend they do.
Yeah. Right.
It's going to go a long way, right? You don't want the guy sitting up there by himself worried that the furnace isn't hot, So I had to change it per industry. And it really took a long time to be able to do that, to make it specific, so that when the employee of one industry is reading it, it resonates with their world. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is, I believe that people are smarter than employers give them credit for. We expect to be able to take all this massive information and pound it into an employee, and the employee is eventually going to get it, and they're going to be able to spit that back out and produce the product that we want. But for some reason, we believe if we just ask them, they don't know the answer. And I disagree. They do know the answer. So why don't we just ask them? They're smart people. So what I want to do is I want to take that little person's world, right, and turn them into the CEO of their own little, world in the company. Just focus on these things. You focus on these 6 things, I'll quickly be able to identify whether or not you're the greatest on the planet, which is why I call it the greatest on the planet, because I want to be able to identify it.
Yeah.
And you only have 3 things. You're going to have an employee who needs help in one of the areas. You're going to have an employee who needs to be fired, or you're going to have the greatest on the planet. And I want everybody to have the greatest on the planet. And it's really not that hard to do. And, we were talking about, what drives people. My drive is not the money. My drive is I want to change the way the entire industry is done. I want to change the way an employee and an employer interact because it hasn't been changed in 200 years. And I had a person just tell me the other day, well, Google changed it. Okay, well, I personally have a friend that works at Google who's not happy. I'm not going to name his name, but
Right.
like he said, the problem is you can't put in a pinball machine and buy me lunch and tell me this is a good place to work. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's like he said, and I don't want to bash Google, but there's big problems here. Big problems that the pinball machine and the free lunch aren't overcoming. So those need to be fixed because you're not just going to buy me. So it really hasn't been changed in 200 years, and since we were farmers in this country. And I believe I have the system to change it.
Yeah. So what are you doing, or how are you going to do that? How are you going to get this into the hands and spread the message and spread the word? Obviously, we're here today talking.
Yep. So I did research on this. So numbers are very important, right? And I want everybody to win because, again, that's what champions and leaders do. They want everybody to win. So I went out and I did the homework on it, and maybe some of it's not the greatest homework in the world, but it's enough for me. And there's I'll do the numbers. There's about 320 million people in the United States. So if just the United States is my target audience, that's the number. Now we have to subtract out seniors that don't work. We have to subtract out infants. We have to subtract out people who can't have some kind of an ailment or something that can't physically work. We have to subtract out the people who just don't want a job, right? So then we get down to there's 157 million people who actually collect a paycheck of some kind. So there's 320 total, and there's 157 who collect a paycheck. Now, how many of those can I change the life for? Well, 30 million of them work for the government. They're police officers, they're firefighters, they're city clerks, they're senators, they're congressmen, they're lawmakers, they're judges. There's, 30 million of them are never going to need my program. The government is not interested in sales. Just not going to worry about follow-up. So I don't think I'll ever be able to sell it to them. Although I do think the taxpayer might actually like it if the government worried about follow-up. But I don't know if we
think they could benefit from it. That's for sure, right?
They could benefit. No doubt about it. They need it. So they're not on my radar. And then the one that really, really is important to me is the people who are above 55 years old. And the reason they're important to me is because some of them still have decades left in the work industry, right? Some of them are actually very critical players to the company. So I do not want them excluded in any way. I want them to be equal to everybody else in this equation. So mostly for that reason, and there is another reason too, but mostly for that reason, I removed this being a technological application out of it. I don't want my father, who's 68 years old and who still works, I don't want him to feel frustrated having to sit down at his computer, who he barely knows how to use because he uses his phone, right? I don't want him to feel frustrated having to sit down at 68 years old and try to figure out how to do this program on something he doesn't feel comfortable doing. So because of that, I did it in a way that I feel most people will feel comfortable doing it, and that's pen and paper. They open up a book. The book is going to ask them a series of questions, and they write down the answer. Then I want them to go do that. If you were in charge, what would you do? And then they go do it, and then come back to me with the win. I want to hear what the win is. So I talked to a guy the other day. He's a podcaster, and he tells me, well, you need to sell this in multiple different modalities. So you need to have it in an app. You need to have it in a learning software like Lightspeed or something like that. You need to have it in your book. You need to have it in a bunch of different ways. And I disagree. I don't need to have that. And the reason I don't need to have that, my belief is, if you look at a company like Coca-Cola, right? When they started Coca-Cola, did they have plastic cans? Did they have metal cans? Did they have fountain drinks? Did they have 2 liters? Did they have 12 ounce? Did they have 20 ounce? Did they have all these things? No, they came as demand was needed, right? So as demand needs, and a company comes to me and says, listen, here's the deal. We have 1.5 million employees. We want to put them all in your program, and we don't want to deal with 1.5 million books. Can you create an app for us? Then we're going to get into the, well, can you physically write down on the app? And this guy's telling me, well, you just need to have pre-formatted questions. I said, I'm not doing that. I don't want, and I even used this as an example, I don't want some heating and cooling guy I said he was an industrial cleaning guy. He's an industrial cleaning guy in Macon, Georgia, to have to select from 5 things that he thinks best applies to this business. He's like, well, maybe he's the oddity. I said, he's not the oddity. He's the norm.
Yeah.
He's the norm. What are you talking about? That guy's not the oddity. That's the norm. You're going to try to take somebody who works in a lawn care business and have them select from 5 different things on what they can do to make this business more efficient. Why don't we just give them a platform and let them write it down? What would you change around here? And then empower them to go change it. And watch how things change. And then go tell the boss that you won in that category. And watch and see what happens. You go up to him and go, hey, I need a new truck. Mine's a little on the run down side. What's he going to say? No. He's going to say, okay, let's go get you a new truck. You're bringing in sales. You follow things up, you know. So it's in written form, and it's pen and paper. And it's got a spiral binding on it because there are pages in the book to tear out to give back to the employer. Like as an example, one of them is name 20 things we can do to be more efficient around here. So if the employee writes down 20 things that we can do to be more efficient around here and turns it in and they have 10 employees, that's 200 ideas to become more efficient. And this other guy I talked to too, he told me, well, you're going to run out of things to be more efficient. And I said, no, you won't. You never will, because there's also the page that says, name 20 things we can do to bring in more money. Well, those 20 things to bring in more money are going to create more processes or more policy. So then some of that's going to become not efficient. So you'll never run out of things. There's nothing ever runs 100% efficient. You're never going to run out of things to be more efficient. But what better way to become more efficient than to ask the people who are doing it? But they need to have a venue to give that information back to you. And that's why I'm putting myself in the shoes of the worker, of the person who works there. Do I want to sit on my phone and write out a list of 20 things we can do to become more efficient around here? It's going to take me hours to do that. I can just write it down with a pen in like 3 seconds and hand it in and be done with it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, everyone wants to go to the technology, but I love the fact that you're doing it, and you're like, I don't have to do it that way, and this is the way I'm doing it, and just going with it and getting that out, and maybe down the road that's something that you can go with, right? But let's wrap this up with one last thing here. I'd love to, for our listeners, whether they're a business owner, entrepreneur, or championship leaders, what's one thing that you could leave them with to be the greatest on the planet inside of their lives?
Perfect. So I try to spread this message everywhere, but there's a 2-part message. So first of all, money is never the goal. Never. Money is the trophy. That's what you get for doing a good job. That's what they hand out. So if you want a lot of money, don't make that the goal. What you want is, what can I do that when they hand out the trophy, it will be a lot of money? And then you focus on that. And if you want a lot of money, that's the only way to get it. Because you can sit around and say, I want $1 million, I want $1 million, I want $1 million. But if you're not providing value to get the $1 million, it's not coming. You're not going to be able to, what do they call that? Manifest or I forgot what. It doesn't work. It does not work. You need to come up with enough value. Like a friend of mine said, I want all of these things. And I said, you're not getting them. And the reason you're not getting them is because you're not focused on what you would have to do in order to produce all of that. So if you can do that, like in my program, I don't have a monetary goal. I don't have, I want to make $1 million a year. I want to have $10 million a year. I want to have $100 million a year. Here's my goal. Let me be very clear. I want to change the industry. I want to change the way it's done. Now, if you go back and you look at the great people in the country or the world on who've done that, they're wildly successful. Wildly successful. Bill Gates did not start Microsoft and say, I want to be a billionaire. He did not do that. What he said is, I want to be the software that runs every computer, right? And same with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs said, I want Apple to be the premier computer system and phone system and, you know, the iPod and the iPad, and, you know, he wasn't worried about money, right? When Disney flew through the essentially the Everglades in Orlando, Florida, looking for a theme park that nobody would lend him money on because they said it was insane and his cartoon didn't need a theme park, right? He wasn't interested in money. He was interested in changing, right? And that's where I come from. I want to change. So that's part one. And then part two, I would say, is I do not resonate well with giving back. That is not who I am. And it does not come across very kindly, but when I finish it, you'll understand. I don't give back because I didn't take. I gave first. I want to get back. I'm open to getting back because I gave first. I want to give. If I come from a place of giving, then can I also, and isn't it acceptable to come from a place of receiving, right?
Yeah.
Where I want to get back. But people don't do that. What they think is, okay, well, I get first, give to me first, and then if I win, I'll give back.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way. Give first, and then you will get back as long as you're open to doing that. And that's another thing I want to say to your listeners too. I created a group on Facebook called John Hopper's Business School. It's really taken off very well. I think it's not even 2 weeks old. It's got over 500 members in it right now. And that's the principle of that school. The principle, the philosophy behind it is there are people who want to grow successful businesses. I have friends who are successful entrepreneurs. If we can put the two of them together, why can't somebody who wants to grow their business and be successful, why can't they get into a group with somebody who's already successful, and the person who is already successful willingly, freely gives information to the person who's seeking it, and we get nothing out of it? Why can't that be allowed? And it can be.
Yeah,
and that's called giving first and then getting back. And then the other thing in the group too is you are allowed to sell. So if somebody says, hey, you know, I'm an entrepreneur, my wife left me and I've gained 40 pounds and I need to get back into shape. I do not want someone in the group to go, buy my stuff and I'll help you lose 40 pounds. That post is probably deleted. But if he comes back and he's like, here, I'm a personal coach, personal trainer, here's 10 things you can do to lose weight right now. And by the way, if you need any help, reach out to me. I might be able to help you because that's what I do for a living. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do want free added value to the group. And so far, it's taken off really well. It's got a lot of engagement. It's got over 500 members. And I haven't even been able to ask my friends. Every time I go to ask my friends to join, Facebook blocks me from doing it. So I want to grow it. I want 1,000 members.
Yeah, it's great that you're doing that. I love the group. It's amazing. I definitely recommend anyone listening to check that out. John Hopper's Business School. It's a group on Facebook. How else can people find out about you, follow you, or you and the Greatest on the Planet and everything that you got going on?
So basically, the Greatest on the Planet is the answer to that. The website is thegreatestontheplanet.com. And when they go there, they can search out their industry, and then it'll take them to what industry they're in, and then they can buy the program in that way. And then also I'm on Instagram. It's The Greatest on the Planet is my handle on Instagram. And then also on Facebook, it's John Hopper, and it's The Greatest on the Planet there as well. And then I'm also The Greatest on the Planet on LinkedIn too.
Thank you.
So I'm the greatest everywhere. And it's not even me that's on the planet. It's the employee that's the greatest on the planet.
I love it. Thank you so much, John, for being here today and for all your wisdom and
thank you.
And everything that you got going on. Appreciate it.
Yep, and tell your listeners, I absolutely want them to track me down. I want to be surrounded by champions and leaders. I mean, that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, if you're listening to this, definitely check out John and what he's got going on. And we'll have all the links in the show notes as well. So thank you, John. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you.